Here. That's great. Hey, everybody. My name is Jennifer O'Brien. I'm with Indivisible Twin Cities, and we're letting folks in. And just want to let you know that we are recording this, and we will be sharing it afterwards um, through our email and then our YouTube channel, Indivisible Twin Cities YouTube channel. If you want to, we're going to keep everybody on mute. So if you have questions tonight, we've got some that we've sent along to David ahead of time, but feel free to put your questions in the chat and please start them with a question and then type it out and we will try to work them in as we go. We do have a number of questions on a broad range of topics. So we'll start there and then I want to introduce Jordan and Sue, who are also from Indivisible Twin Cities, and they will be helping me monitor the chat and get your questions in. If I haven't said this already, please keep yourself on mute. And now I would like to introduce David Gottfried, who's running for this in the special election for SD40B, which is Roseville and Shoreview. Welcome to Indivisible Twin Cities and one of our Meet the Candidate events, David.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and speaking to you all. And yeah, just I very much grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
We could probably start off with a really general question, but why don't you share a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for office?
Sure. Yeah, I was born and raised here in Roseville, actually, just south of where Makwa Coffee currently is, and product of the Roseville area public schools. And honestly, I have been felt compelled towards public service for a very, very long time. It's one of those things where when I was in second grade, I got sent to the principal's office for two we'll call it vociferously talking about climate change policy to a student when I should have been paying attention to in class. And that kind of continued on throughout my life. And so when I heard that this opportunity opened up, it's funny, my wife and I had just moved back into the district after we had, found love out in Maple Grove, Minnesota. I decided that I wanted to be my home, this area, not particularly 40B, but I knew the Roseville Shoreview area very well, and I knew this is where I wanted to raise my family. And so we moved in December 2023. And then about a month later, I found out that this seat was opening up with Jamie Becker Finn's retirement. And so, it just kind of felt like kismet, the stars aligning. And so that's when I decided to originally throw my hat in the race. Yeah, the rest is kind of history.
Well, this is a very uh, dramatic way of running for office. But one of the things that since you're so familiar with the area, Roseville and Shoreview are very different cities. How do you view them as a representative? How will you represent both areas,
Yeah,
and what
for
are you
sure.
think the differences are?
Yeah, and they are different. They have some somewhat different challenges. The economic drivers of both cities are slightly different. But what I see my role as a state legislator, operating at a statewide level, is really facilitating and making sure that the municipal governments, the Roseville City Council and the Shoreview City Council, the mayor of Roseville, the mayor of Shoreview, really are set up for the best success in order to promote their citizenry and make the lives of their citizens and residents all the better. So really, it is just working in collaboration with those two governments, hearing what capital projects they would like to bring in and what sort of state funds that we would like to bring back into the district. But municipal governments are there for a reason. They're the ones who are able to be most in tune with the needs of their constituencies, and so working closely with them is truly how I would do it, and keeping an eye out for the different needs between those two different cities as opposed to just one. I will say Roseville is the larger of the two cities within this district, but that being said, Shoreview certainly does need to have its needs my attention as well.
Right. Well, you're kind of going into a very interesting time at the State House with everything all the fireworks that may be happening. Tomorrow is the first day. And we kind of want to ask you, now that the House is evenly divided between the two parties, how do you approach necessary compromise? Do you look for a middle ground, or do you work to persuade people to your point of view? What is more important, getting along or standing for your principles?
So I want to quick say that it's not a given that it's going to be 67. We still have this special election that's coming up, and we take nothing for granted in my campaign. So we have to fight for it to be a 67-67 tie. So I just want to quick acknowledge that first before I go on to answer the question. As far as the idea of trying whether or not you compromise on your compromise or you stick to your guns, so to speak, it really depends on the issue. I don't want to compromise my progressive values. I will not be the 68th vote. Uh, I will not be the 68th vote. Oh, sorry. Somebody switched the screen. So I am staring at myself talking, and that's very disconcerting. So I am going to switch it back for myself to make sure that I am not so that I'm not just staring at myself talking. I really apologize for that distraction. Anyway, sorry. As I was saying, I think the idea is that we need to find ways of passing bipartisan legislation so we move together and help improve the lives of Minnesotans without compromising our progressive values or my progressive values. We have to be cognizant of the fact that it takes 68 votes to pass legislation within the House. So if we are going to do something to try to improve the lives of Minnesotans, it does have to come with bipartisan support. If we do in fact maintain that 67-67 tie. That being said, the 67-67 tie does allow us to hold the line on the progressive values that we have. For example, my wife worked on the Coalition for Paid Family Medical Leave that was passed in 2023. I will not be the 68th vote to tear that down before it even has a chance to get rolling as it's supposed to roll out in 2026. And I think that's what we're talking about is that we need to find ways of working together and finding inroads in places that we can agree upon without compromising our values as a progressive party. I'm going to quick look just to see if I completely address that question. Yeah, I think so. Unless there's further clarification that you would like, I'd be happy to provide more.
Well, actually, I think this is a good segue into our next question. A number of the questions are from residents in Roseville, and this is one of them. Your predecessors, Mindy Grilling and Jamie Becker-Finn, were outstanding representatives for Roseville and Shoreview area. They championed issues such as education, mental health, criminal justice reform, and the environment. What are your top priority issues that you plan to champion?
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to quick give a shout out. I see that Mindy is on the call right now. So hello, Mindy. Thank you for your excellent leadership over the years. And again, I don't think Jamie's on the call right now, but thank you to her for her incredible work over the past 8 or so years. As far as the particular things that I'd like to champion, Mindy and I have connected a lot on supportive housing and really finding ways to continue building those facilities within the Twin Cities area. And I think that's something that I certainly would like to continue and carry on as well. And I actually do think that there may be inroads for that this particular legislative session and maybe next legislative session. Mental health supports is typically something that Republicans and Democrats have been able to come together over. So I do find it likely that we can find some inroads sooner rather than later on that particular topic. Beyond just that, education is a huge big pillar of my life, my campaign. I am the son of a public educator, and so I know firsthand, not well secondhand technically, definitionally secondhand through her, the struggles that educators are going through right now. There's a huge educator shortage, and so one of the things that I would like to do is help make the field of education a more attractive profession for a lot of folks. Um, Teachers are underpaid, they're overworked, they don't have the supports that they need really to succeed and actually deliver curriculum to students effectively. So I'm very supportive of a lot of the policies that are being proposed by Education Minnesota that help make the profession more attractive, such as like a $60,000 base pay. That's the floor for a teacher's salaries. Because oftentimes teachers have to get not just a bachelor's degree, but also get a master's degree in order to compete in this field. And right now, their wages are not commensurate with the level of education that they have when compared to other fields that require the same level. So that's one of the things that I'd like to do. And I answered Education Minnesota, or I mentioned Education Minnesota in that answer. That kind of segues into another area that I'm incredibly passionate about, and that is the organized labor movement. I am a union member, have been since 2011, member of SAG-AFTRA, and I believe that unions democratize the workforce, and in doing so, they are a pillar of democracy itself. I think they are one of our vital ways in fighting fascism. So I will do whatever I can to support labor organizations and organized labor in this state. And I will say I'm probably rambling too much on this one, but the last pillar that I really want to hit on is the environment and specifically climate change. I fully believe that our state will become a climate refuge within the next 20 to 30 years. I mean, Los Angeles is suffering a catastrophic firestorm that parts of it are still out of control. I know people that live in this area that moved here from Los Angeles because they already felt that it was becoming inhospitable. And that's also and Los Angeles is a place that is still considered to be relatively good in comparison to other areas that are experiencing some ecological disasters. Arizona is going to become inhospitable. The coastlines are going to continue to suffer huge amounts of catastrophic weather because of climate change. And so I think we need to prepare our state to become a climate refuge, and we need to start doing that work now in order to build ourselves up to for success in that 20 to 30 year time scale. Anyway, I probably waxed on poetically too long, but there are your answers to what my top priorities would be.
Let me ask a follow-up question on the climate issue because I know you've been endorsed by the Friends of the Boundary Waters. Are
Sure.
there particular organizations that are working on policies that you want to partner with, and what are those policies that you think might actually get through?
Well, I mean, so there's kind of the second part of the question is one of the interests is probably the more interesting of those two, because again we have to be cognizant of the 67-60 tie between the House, again assuming that that I win this election, which I do not take for granted. We have to prepare aspirational policy. That's one of the things that I would like that we need to do even as we're seeking bipartisan means in the short term. Um, there are things that we will not be able to push across the finish line in the next 2 years, given the particular nature of the House right now. And that's just the reality of the situation. That doesn't stop us though from preparing. I'm going to go back to the example of paid family medical leave. That passed in 2023, but it was a bill that had been worked on for a decade prior to that. And so when we're talking about aspirational policy, that is an example of an aspirational policy made manifest within this state. And so that is what we have to start doing. One of the ideas that I have is we currently have a Great Lakes Compact Agreement. Basically, it's a water conservation management of all the Great Lakes states that share a coastline with the Great Lakes, and then also a couple of the provinces within Canada. Um, I think we need to strengthen that to prepare for again what I see as ecological disaster in 20 to 30 years. Those things are not based on projections of worst case climate change scenarios, and I think those compacts need to be refreshed or that compact needs to be refreshed in order to update it to with those projections in mind. So yeah, that's one of the things that we need to do. I mean, there's a lot of great policies going on, expanding the green fleet, expanding public transportation so that it goes past County Road C, which I know is a very distinct problem that we have in our district and the districts north of us is that there's not robust public transportation. So working on those measures and also trying to convert and diversify the way that we attain our energy is all those are all things that I think we need to start doing right now. Um, if we want to get really nitty gritty, the Metropolitan Council is working on an initiative to install what they call biosolar systems onto municipal properties. Biosolar systems are a combination of green roofs and solar panels that kind of have this like symbiotic relationship that create that or reduces urban heat islands, making cities more livable in extreme heat, as well as provide energy to those particular areas. They can be installed into microgrids and stuff. That's one area that I think we really need to invest in the metropolitan areas of our state to make sure that we are getting ready for the worst of climate change. Again, probably waxed poetic on too long. I apologize. I am a policy analyst by trade, so this is kind of how I roll, and I do apologize if I bored anybody.
No, this is a group that really loves policy. So this is a you're right on target. And with the start of legislation, the legislative session starting tomorrow, a number of us are going to be going to support the ERA with the Forward Together rally. Can you tell us how you would vote on the Equal Rights Amendment, the ballot initiative, and whether you support it or not?
Yeah, I support it 100%. It's easy. That should go to a ballot initiative. Let's get this in the Constitution.
Are you willing to help work to convince some perhaps centrist Republicans to join us in getting it through?
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. Immigration is with the Trump mega agenda getting started, immigration is a really big concern for a lot of us and a lot of our neighbors.
Mhm.
Um, let's see, there's a question from Roseville on this. Immigrants in Minnesota are fearful about what's to come the next few years. What will you do to ensure their protection?
Sure. I want to at first acknowledge that it is a scary time. Um, so my day job is working as a pro bono specialist at a local law firm. I shouldn't say local. It's like we have a bunch of different offices throughout the country. But one of our main sources of our pro bono work that we do is immigration, and specifically through a medical legal partnership that we have within the Phillips neighborhood of Minneapolis. We have a lot of folks who are immigrants that are seeking, temporary protected status and a bunch of other ways of, naturalization, a bunch of other ways of becoming um, citizens of this country. And there's a lot of fear out there, understandably so. As far as what we can do as a state, it is somewhat limited, unfortunately, because immigration policy is set at the federal level, and enforcement is set at the federal level. That being said, there are things that states can do with so-called sanctuary policies. Now, here's the thing: the sanctuary policies don't actually interfere with the administration of immigration, the immigration policies at the federal level, but there are things that they can do to try to slow things down, such as like restricting the ability of like state and local police to make arrests for federal immigration violations or detaining individuals on civil immigration warrants. We can prevent the building of immigration detention centers in the states. We can, um, you know, prevent like local governments from entering into contracts with federal governments to hold like immigrations in detention. There are things that we can do along like in that regard, that I think we as a state could adopt, to help assuage some of those concerns. Um, but I want to be realistic in saying that I hear you and we'll be doing everything that we can. One of the other things that we can do, which may feel a bit like I guess, a band-aid on what is truly going to be an open wound, is funding more legal aid, civil legal aid, within our state. Because again, a lot of the pro bono work that we do is to help few people get their, become get their green card, gain citizenship, and things like that. And if we are able to increase access to justice in that regard, there will be more folks, immigrants who feel safe within this country and within the state, I should say, in particular.
Okay, we don't want to get too far, but one of the main missions of Indivisible is we work around democracy issues and
Mhm.
voting. And let's see, the first question is, what is your plan to protect and strengthen access to our democracy for all Minnesotans, regardless of color, background, zip code, or party?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of folks who are disenfranchised currently by their former incarcerations and things like that. I want to in the vein of civil legal aid, increase avenues for expungement of criminal records, so that we could enfranchise those folks to vote again. One of the things that I think we need to do is really have a public awareness campaign of what actually you can do as like your rights to vote, as it pertains to your employment. A lot of folks it is mandatory for your employer to give your employer to give employees time off to vote, but not a lot of folks know how that works, know those rights, and so really making sure that that is clear is of the utmost importance. Something that I would toy with, and I would have to figure out the legalities of it. But the just enshrining, election day as a state holiday, not just a federal holiday, but because we can't control what the feds do with that, but a state holiday that we could encourage employers to follow. Um, Otherwise, I think Minnesota does a great job. We have same day voter registration, which I think is incredibly important to increasing access to the polls. I think that is something that I would defend staunchly. And I would also support measures to automatically register voters and defend those. So yeah, I think those are some of the areas that we can improve, and defend as a state.
And how about ranked choice voting? That's a piece of legislation that's been very popular on the city level, from city to city. And we were another like the ERA last session. It was so close.
Yeah,
How do you feel about ranked choice voting in Minnesota?
fully in favor of it. I'm proud to have the endorsement of Fair Vote Minnesota. So I would love to see ranked choice voting in any and all elections within the state.
Great. And with that, Jordan and Sue, have you seen any questions from the audience?
Let me unmute myself. And the let's see, Julie asked about canvassing. I put a link to your events page. I'm going to assume that your events page is where anybody should go if they want to know about what you have. It doesn't seem like there's any postcarding operation yet. Is there any plan for postcarding?
There is not a postcarding operation yet. Unfortunately, there is not a plan for postcards given the very, very, very short
Yeah,
timeline that we have in this, and the uh, campaign finance implications of a postcard program. What I will say, anybody that wants to write to their neighbors can do so. But as far as handing out lists and from the campaign to folks to do a postcard operation, gets really, really sticky with campaign finance law, and that's something, given the truncated timeline, that we don't have the capacity to deal with at the moment.
makes sense. Thank you. Go ahead, Jen.
But you do have phone banks on the calendar
Correct.
and door
Door
knocking
knocks
almost
and
every single day.
fundraising. Yep.
Correct. Yeah, we have phone banks and door knocks. We have phone banks at least every single weekday. We have door knocks every single day, and I think we may have phone banks on the weekend too. So we should have opportunities, plenty of opportunities for people to get involved, both for folks who are willing to go out and knock doors in January weather, and folks who are less willing to do so.
Great. Taylor from Richfield asks if you have plans supporting sanctuary legislation for LGBTQIA plus individuals.
Yes. I am a member of the queer community myself. I'm pansexual. And so, it's something that's near and dear to my heart. Many of my family members are also members of the LGBTQ community. So I certainly would support and do support sanctuary measures for members of my community.
Great. Last question in the chat, and if you guys have others, put questions real quick. We have a few minutes left, but thoughts on gun control from Kit.
Yeah, Kit, thanks for the question. We do a lot of pretty good things within this state. We an aspirational policy is obviously the banning of military style assault weapons. But prior to that, there are two things that we really can continue to work on. That is safe storage. That is a bill that Jamie Becker Finn carried, and I believe it did pass the House, but I don't believe it's passed the Senate yet. And then the other area where we actually do have a gap within our gun safety policies, is mandatory confiscation for calls onto domestic disturbance scenes. So one of the stats bear out that the highest number of murders or killings by weapons happen by domestic partners, husbands, partners, people living together, spouses, so on and so forth. And we don't have a law that mandates police officers or public safety officers to take weapons off of site whenever they respond to a domestic issue. Now, I believe that if after a certain time passes, a person doesn't have any issues and stuff, that they could potentially get a weapon back. But again, there has to be a period in which those weapons are confiscated and taken off site, so as to protect folks from what is statistically a very, very significant likely cause of someone losing their life.
Great answer. One last question from Joe Bulfer. Are you supportive of geothermal networks? Would you have work on it? Would you work on it, including new developments?
I'm not going to lie. That is an area of energy that I am not super well versed in. So I would have to look into it more. I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer than I don't know, because I don't know a heck of a lot about it. But I'd be happy to learn more and happy to follow up with you at a later time to discuss it a little bit further. So maybe that's a lackluster way to end the Q&A, but I'm going to be intellectually humble. I don't know, so I'm not going to give a firm answer on that.
Jordan, that might be a really great segue to putting his website into the
Yep.
chat, which his site also has a contact form. So you can reach out to David that way with questions, and he's been very responsive.
Yes, thank you. Great answers. And I think now we're going to talk about our stuff a little bit, or
Yeah, David, do you have
any closing?
15 seconds? Any closing statements?
Well, no, I'll end with gratitude. I just want to say thank you for coming here and listening and engaging in the chat. And if there are questions that were left unanswered, if you want to connect a little bit later, please do go to the website. There is a contact form on there. I will try to get back to you. Keeping in mind that we are just 15 days out from the election, that I am certainly not taking for granted, and that we need to really campaign as though we're 10 points down. So with all those things together, I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But yeah, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Okay, and we have put the Secretary of State Voting Info website if you want to know where your early voting location is. Early voting begins on the 22nd, right? And then special election is January 28th. There is a special election voting info page that has all of the information regarding this particular race, and that is in the chat as well. Jordan, do you want to talk about upcoming Indivisible Twin Cities events really
I'd
quickly?
love to. We have so much scheduled. I'm going to just dump a bunch of links in the chat. Tomorrow we have an action hour, 6 o'clock,
6:30.
6:30. We have 5 things we're going to act on, reach out to our reps. We have, let's see, we have the ERA thing also tomorrow, for a rally at the Capitol tomorrow. Is that right?
Yep.
That's we have the People's March on Saturday. We have the MLK Day protest at the Capitol. Well, it starts and it kind of meanders around and gets to the Capitol on Monday. Also Inauguration Day. We also have an all-member legislative preview meeting on the 23rd, a Zoom featuring some senators and House reps.
Right. Right now we have Senator Scott Dibble coming, and then State Representative Steve Elkins is coming, and we're waiting to hear from a couple more. So stay tuned on that one.
And reach out to, so I'll also put our website in as for always. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, David, for coming and talking with everybody and taking questions from the crowd. And everybody in Roseville and Shoreview, make sure that you go vote and bring your neighbors. When I was out this weekend door knocking, most of the people that actually answered the door had no idea that there was another election coming. So let's get out the vote together and sign up for some door knocking or phone bags. That's the only way it's going to happen. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Save the chat. I'll save the video and I'll post it and I'll stop recording now. Thanks.
Please stop recording.